Hey there! Welcome back to English Through Historical Stories, where we dive into fascinating events from history while helping you improve your English. I'm Emily Bennett, and today's story is one you don't want to miss. It's about one of the greatest prison escapes in history. But before we get into that, remember, this is a great way to challenge yourself in learning English. Try watching without subtitles first. Then, watch it again with subtitles to catch anything you missed. Finally, come back in a few days and listen again, and I bet you'll notice how much progress you've made. Now, let's get into the story of one of the most daring prison breaks ever, the infamous escape from Alcatraz. Alcatraz, also known as the Rock, was no ordinary prison. It was the prison. Located on a small, isolated island in the middle of San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz was designed to house the most dangerous criminals in the United States. From 1934 to 1963, it held notorious figures like Al Capone and George "Machine Gun" Kelly. The prison had a reputation for being inescapable. With its remote location, the freezing waters, and the strong currents of the bay, it seemed like a fortress from which no one could flee. But in June 1962, three men decided to put that theory to the test: Frank Morris and the brothers John and Clarence Anglin. These weren't just any prisoners. Frank Morris was known for his sharp intelligence and his ability to escape from other prisons. And the Anglin brothers? Well, they had a long history of working together on crimes and had grown up swimming in icy waters, something that would come in handy for what they were about to attempt. But this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. The escape from Alcatraz was months in the making. Frank Morris was the mastermind behind the plan, and he knew that the only way out was to dig through the walls of their cells. So every night, he and the Anglin brothers worked with makeshift tools: spoons, sharpened metal pieces, even an electric drill they made from a vacuum cleaner motor, to chip away at the concrete around the ventilation grates at the back of their cells. They had to be incredibly careful. Every morning they covered the holes they made with cardboard and paint, hiding their work from the guards. They weren't working alone either. Two other inmates, Alan West and Clarence Carnes, were also in on the plan. But on the night of the escape, West couldn't make it out of his cell in time, leaving Morris and the Anglin brothers to continue without him. Once they dug their way out of their cells, they climbed into an unguarded utility corridor. From there, they made their way to the roof of the prison. This was a part of Alcatraz that was mostly out of sight, but their plan didn't end there. They needed to find a way off the island itself, which meant facing the treacherous waters of San Francisco Bay. And so, they started to build a raft. Their raft was made from more than 50 raincoats they had collected over time. Ingenious, right? These men, with limited resources, were able to create something that could carry them across the bay's freezing waters. They stitched the raincoats together, making a crude but effective inflatable raft. On the night of June 11, 1962, Morris and the Anglin brothers made their move. After slipping out of their cells, they climbed down the exterior of the prison using a pipe, made their way to the shore, and inflated their makeshift raft. Then, they vanished into the night. The next morning, when the guards made their routine cell checks, they found the dummy heads the men had left in their beds to make it look like they were sleeping. The alarm was raised, and what followed was one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history. The FBI, the Coast Guard, and local law enforcement searched the bay and surrounding areas for any sign of the men, but there was nothing. No bodies, no raft, no evidence of where they had gone. The official investigation concluded that Morris and the Anglin brothers most likely drowned in the cold waters. The strong currents would have carried them out to sea, and they probably succumbed to hypothermia. But no bodies were ever found, and there was no definitive evidence that they had died that night. The Anglin family, however, had a different story to tell. Over the years, they claimed to have received letters, phone calls, and even photographs of John and Clarence Anglin living in South America. One photograph, allegedly taken in the 1970s, shows two men who bear a striking resemblance to the Anglin brothers. Could they have actually survived the escape, made it across the bay, and disappeared into history? Frank Morris, the mastermind behind the plan, also vanished without a trace. The FBI officially closed the case in 1979, saying there was no solid evidence to suggest the men had survived. But conspiracy theories and speculation continue to keep the mystery alive to this day. Some believe they reached the nearby Marin headlands and hid until they could make their way to freedom. Others think they had help from the outside, perhaps from criminal associates who knew how to keep them hidden. And then there are those who say surviving such a cold, dangerous swim would have been impossible without better equipment or assistance. Did these men pull off the greatest escape in history, or did they meet a tragic end in the cold waters of San Francisco Bay? The mystery of the Alcatraz escape remains unsolved, and it continues to fascinate people even decades later. So what do you think? Did Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers survive their daring escape, or did the icy waters of San Francisco claim them? Whatever the truth, their story has become legend, and it's a perfect example of how history can keep us guessing. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. And remember, you can always come back and rewatch this episode to improve your English comprehension. The more you listen, the more you learn. In our next episode, we'll explore the theft of the Mona Lisa. So, stay tuned for more amazing stories from English through historical stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.